There comes a time in life when one becomes quite sure and comfortable in one's opinions and view of the world. Right and wrong, what does justice mean? Where and when would one compromise one's principles? What is true, not absolute truth, God forbid, and false? I thought I was in that place. My political views were quite solid, derived from Jewish history and naturally from my education and life experiences. Basically, I thought we should not do to others what was done to us for so many years. I thought we cannot be racist as a people, almost by definition. My father's family originated in Poland and immigrated to Israel, then Palestine, in the early 1920s. My mother's family emigrated from the Netherlands in 1939, more or less at the last minute. My grandfather said that Hitler would invade Holland and they should leave. Unfortunately, he couldn't persuade some members of the family who chose to stay a bit longer, since they couldn't imagine living in this godforsaken country in the Middle East. I remember the stories about the letters that arrived from occupied Holland and from the concentration camp Bergen-Belsen, and my mother as a child losing one letter by accident. And then the letters stopped, she said. I read a lot about the Holocaust and the Second World War. I read diaries where I could relate to growing fear when living in occupied territories. I read history books, a diary of a Nazi. I read about the resistance and resistance in other dictatorial regimes. Slowly, political awareness began to emerge regarding the Israeli occupation in the West Bank and back then in Gaza. And the realization dawned on me that oppression and crimes are committed in my name. I felt I could no longer merely grumble with my friends about the situation and do nothing. One Saturday, we visited friends living 30 minutes from Jerusalem on the Israeli side of the Green Line. We crossed a checkpoint on the way back. There was this soldier directing Israeli vehicles to the left, Palestinians to the right, to be checked. I thought, what if his grandmother once faced such a selection? How can history play such tricks on us? I must emphasize that I believe there is no comparison between then and now, that there is a huge difference between the Holocaust and what we are committing in the occupied territories. But I belong to those who believe we should compare and that we should self-reflect and check ourselves time and again. I suppose we should remain vigilant even to semantic resemblances. I joined the women's organization Mahsom Watch, which means Checkpoint Watch, a volunteer-based organization that reaches all areas within the occupied territories, including military checkpoints, Palestinian villages, persecuted shepherds communities, and military courts, where we would document, disseminate information to combat the silence and indifference of the media and public towards realities of the occupation. I kept acting against injustice towards Palestinians, regularly attended demonstrations against the occupation, and traveled to Palestinian villages to assist with the olive harvest, etc. Then the 7th of October happened. Our world turned upside down. In a blink of an eye, my home didn't feel safe anymore. My country was in total chaos. The civilian protest organizations took the lead by establishing an information center about casualties whom the authorities had no information about. Centers to gather information about where and which supplies are needed, who needs alternative housing, and so on. The authorities were numb. The realization that people were murdered, raped, burned alive, beheaded, tortured, and kidnapped on Israeli territory, and regardless of their age, identity, or nationality, was incomprehensible and appalling. Many of my beliefs shattered into pieces. During the first week, I couldn't tear myself away from the television, watching the news with dismay and shock. It was hard to fall asleep, hard to eat. I didn't watch the horrific videos from the 7th of October, but images that we were censored and we were spared from seeing joined the ones that we were not, and the ones we did not see we imagined. I believe that it is within the space between the imagined and the concrete that art is being created at this time. At the end of this week, my son wrote in the family WhatsApp group that he received a draft order from the army and he has to report the next day. Worry, fear, and the sense of utter helplessness overwhelmed me. I went to the studio. All of a sudden, everything that I've done prior to the 7th seemed irrelevant. On a sheet of paper, I started smearing black acrylic paint with a piece of cardboard. Usually I use oil colors on canvas. Acrylic is a medium that is immediate, quick to dry, therefore the painting can be finished in one go. It is a rather simple, not sophisticated medium. It doesn't encompass years of cultural heritage. It felt right. It felt like writing a diary rather than an artistic self-absorption. I painted portraits from images I saw in the news. Faces of concerned parents in a hastily established center for locating missing persons. Faces of heartbroken people receiving devastating news. Desperate people. The portraits conveyed my emotions very accurately, so I borrowed them, trying to figure out how to understand the new reality. What do I feel beside horror amid the feasibility of our greatest fears coming true? I thought I can identify a trauma that is beyond the individual trauma, but a national one. We all carry it in our DNA, the trauma of the Holocaust that is deeply ingrained in our identity. It is a component of our literature, our collective memory, and rooted in our associative archives. As in any trauma, it needs a trigger to surface. This was a particularly harsh trigger, almost verbal one-on-one, causing the trauma to resurface immediately. We were all engulfed in our grief, overwhelmed by the dreadful sensation that we were living a nightmare. I found myself unable to cease painting black backgrounds. Eventually, I began to question whether I should continue, feeling as though abandoning the black would be a betrayal. Gradually, anger permeates the spaces between fear and despair, and slowly you come out of your shell and become aware of others. The death toll and the ghastly sights from Gaza became more and more overwhelming. However, despite my set of values and my rational self urging me to consider the Palestinians' suffering, my emotions towards them became a bit numb. I thought that this mass killing of civilians will not cure our pain or bring the hostages back. The images I unintentionally saw, the testimonies of hostages who came back, of the common people in the streets, men, women, and children, beating up the wounded and cuffed hostages on the way, narrowed the empathy I thought I should feel for those of them who suffered the horrors of war. Yet one day I saw a picture of a young Palestinian mother with her 2 daughters in what looked like a refugee camp. I knew her portrait is the next one I will paint. In the shadow of a tent behind her, I regained my empathy. Every day I leave my home to go to the studio, and I'm angry. Angry at the people in the street, angry while reading the news, angry when I see some of the stickers along the way that still claim victory. So much anger, despair, helplessness, and sadness. Then I enter the studio and close the door behind me, and I'm alone. The only noise is in my head. After the immediate responsive paintings, a few months passed, and I kept painting, slowly returning to my art. I painted 2 self-portraits, also in acrylic, titled Self-Portrait in War, feeling that I had changed, not only mentally, but also physically. I painted portraits of mothers of hostages, a girl in Gaza, and more. But I did return to my art before the 7th, and we all resumed meeting friends, listening to music, and making plans for the future. Though still, to this day, I go at least once a week to a demonstration calling for the return of the hostages, an end to the war, and an end to the starvation. In the studio, I have several works in progress. I'm working on 2 exhibitions, one of them with my partner, which will deal with us, our relationship, and both our mutual and individual self-portraits. I know the political reality will be part of these portraits and will surely permeate almost every subject we touch, as it exists in the very particles of the air we breathe. Then there are the sketches I make in various sizes in charcoal, emerging from passing thoughts, sketches of people with their hands up surrendering, a sketch becoming a painting of the ruins of Gaza and 3 young girls facing it. It's as if I have returned to work on my art, and these drawings are brief notes fleeting through the day and reaching the surface of the paper, not allowing me to fully concentrate on other subjects. We are recording this one day after all the living hostages have been released. The deal has been signed and the war is over. So maybe the wheel of history has changed its course and we are now headed towards better days.